The clock above the pie case ticked past 12:17 a.m. Outside, the rain hadn't stopped for hours. It bled down the diner's front windows in slow-moving streaks, like the place itself was crying. Inside, the air smelled of burnt coffee and fryer, oil, the usual perfume of Milo's Diner, a 24-hour stop on the edge of nowhere, Kentucky. The place was quiet, except for the low hum of the fridge and the occasional sizzle from the grill in the back. Nick stood behind the counter, rubbing a thumb over the corner of her tired eyes. She'd been on her feet since 4 p.m. Her red apron was streaked with syrup and grease, ponytail sagged low, and her smile more. Pin looked as exhausted as she felt. It was a Tuesday or maybe Wednesday. She wasn't sure anymore. The doorbell jingled. She didn't look up right away. Probably just another trucker needing caffeine or a college kid looking for something greasy to soak up the night. But then she looked and felt her stomach clench. A man stood in the doorway. Tall, damp from the rain, his black coat clinging to him like a shadow. His face wasn't especially memorable, average, plain, even forgettable. But his eyes. Those cold, flat eyes. They didn't scan the menu board like most people. They just looked straight ahead. At her for a second, Nix thought about calling Ben in the back, the overnight cook, just to have someone else nearby, but she shook it off. He was just tired, wet, maybe broken-hearted. She'd seen worse. "Welcome to Milo's," she called, slipping on her customer voice. "Sit wherever." He didn't say a word, just slid into booth 7. She grabbed a menu and walked it over, keeping her steps light, her smile polite. "Here you go, coffee." He nodded once, black. She turned to leave, but then his voice followed her, quiet and strange. "Make it good. This is my last meal." She froze. For half a second, she wasn't sure she'd heard right. She turned back, trying to keep her tone light. "Come again?" He looked up. That same vacant stare. "Just hungry," he said, lips barely curling into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. She chuckled nervously. "Okay, well, I'll do my best. Pancakes? Omelet?" He stared at the salt shaker on the table for a moment. "Pancakes, extra syrup." Nix walked back to the counter, her spine tingling. Ben leaned out from the kitchen window. "Late crowd, just one. Kinda weird." "Define weird." Nix paused. Said something about it being his last meal. Ben raised an eyebrow but didn't push. He flipped the pancakes and turned back to the sizzling grill. Nix poured the coffee. Watching the man from the corner of her eye, he sat completely still, not checking his phone, not fiddling with silverware. Just staring at nothing, she set the coffee down in front of him. "Syrup's on the table. Pancakes will be out in a sec." He nodded once. "No thank you. No small." Talked as she walked away. She heard the soft clink of the spoon stirring the cup. By the time the plate hit the table, the diner was empty again. It's just her, Ben, and the man in booth 7. He looked at the pancakes like they were something sacred. He picked up the fork, took one slow bite, and closed his eyes. That was the only time she saw his face change. A moment of peace, nostalgia, pain. She couldn't tell. He ate slowly, like someone savoring every crumb. When he was done, he wiped his mouth with a napkin, placed the fork neatly on the plate, and reached into his coat. Nix tensed, but he only pulled out a worn leather wallet and left. A crisp $20 bill on the table, double what the meal cost. He stood, nodded once to her, and walked out without a word. The bell above the door jingled softly as it shut behind him. She stood there for a long time, just watching the rain swallow him whole as he disappeared into the darkness. 20 minutes later, the bell rang again. A drunk couple stumbled in, laughing too loudly, smelling like gin and cheap perfume. Booth 7 was empty. The $20 bill still rested neatly on the laminated table. She picked it up slowly, her fingers brushing the spot where he'd sat. A part of her wanted to chase after him, just to ask, "Are you okay?" What did you mean by that? But it was too late. She didn't know it then. Didn't know that somewhere down Route 8, in a dark, abandoned warehouse, a life had already ended. Didn't know that in a few short hours his face would be on the morning news, tied to something far darker than a bad day or a lonely night. All she knew was she'd just served someone their last meal, and the way he'd said it, he hadn't been joking. Not at all. The sun hadn't even fully risen yet. A pale strip of light stretched across the horizon, filtering through the blinds of Nix's small one-bedroom apartment on the second floor above a hardware store. Rain still tapped gently on the windows, now more like a whisper than a storm. She was curled up on the fraying couch, wrapped in her oversized hoodie, cradling a chipped blue mug with the words "Caffeine is my religion" printed in fading letters. The smell of strong burnt coffee filled the room. Her feet ached, her back screamed, but her brain was wired. She hadn't slept much after her shift. Something about that man, the way he stared, the way he said it. Make it good. My last meal. She shook the thought off again. The TV was playing softly in the background, some early morning news segment. Static buzzed now and then. She wasn't really paying attention until the words "breaking news" blinked across the screen in red. Authorities have just confirmed that a body was found overnight in an abandoned warehouse near Route 8.
Thanks.
Glanced up. The deceased has been identified as Caleb Dunn. It's age 34. He was the primary suspect in a double homicide that occurred Monday evening in Warren County. Dunn was believed to be on the run and was the subject of a statewide manhunt. Her fingers tightened around the mug. The name didn't register, but the photo that appeared on the screen next, it hit her like a freight train. That face, that same blank expression, that same damp hair. The man from booth 7, her breath caught in her throat. She put the mug down quickly. It's tipped over, spilling coffee across the table, dripping onto the carpet. But she didn't move. The voice on the TV kept going, steady and detached. Police believe Dunn took his own life shortly after midnight. A handwritten note was recovered at the scene. While its contents have not been fully disclosed, sources say it may indicate remorse or a final goodbye. More on that later. Nix blinked hard. She stood up and stepped closer to the screen, as if the face might change, as if the news might correct itself, but it didn't. She'd served him pancakes. She'd poured his coffee. She'd laughed when he said it. "This is my last meal." Her phone buzzed, jolting her. A text. "Fern, did you see the news? Wasn't that the guy from last night? Booth 7? Nick sat down slowly. Her thumbs hovered over the keyboard, shaking. She typed, "Yes, I think it was him." The phone buzzed again. "Fern, girl, that's crazy. He looked like a ghost last night. You okay?" Was she okay? No, not even close. Later that morning around 9:20 a.m., a black SUV pulled into the parking lot outside Milo's Diner. The place was barely open. Only two elderly locals sat by the window drinking tea, oblivious to the tension about to walk in. Two men stepped out, both in dark coats, serious expressions. They walked straight to the counter where Nix was refilling napkin dispensers. "Miss Nix Rowan?" the taller one asked. "Yeah?" He flashed a badge. "Detective Bone, Warren County Sheriff's Department. It's my partner, Detective Hale. Mind if we ask you a few questions?" She nodded, pulse spiking. "Can we speak privately?" She led them to the break room, a small space with a dented soda machine and a microwave that only worked if you punched it twice first. Bone flipped. "Open a small notebook. You were working the night shift last night, correct?" "Yeah, I clocked in at 4. Worked till about 2. Do you recognize this man?" He held up a printed photo. Nix didn't even need to look twice. "That's him, booth 7. Came in around midnight. Pancakes, black coffee," said. Her voice caught. "He said something weird." Bone looked up. "What exactly?" He said, "Make it good." "This is my last meal." She swallowed hard. "I thought he was just being dramatic. Lonely, maybe." Bone and Hale exchanged a look. "He left a note," Bone said quietly. "Didn't mention the diner, but he wanted peace before he went. Said he was done running." The words hit her like a slap. Done running. She suddenly remembered the way he'd eaten, slow, careful, like someone counting seconds, like someone saying goodbye. "I served him," she whispered. "And then he was dead before morning." After the detectives left, Nick stood alone, behind the counter, staring out at the parking lot. The clouds had started to break. Patches of blue sky peeked through like the storm was finally passing. But the storm inside her, it had just begun. She couldn't shake the image of him. Way he sat so still. The way he looked up at her and said those words with no emotion, no fear, just finality. Had he killed those people? The news said he had. The photos were grainy, the crime scene dark. A couple found murdered in their farmhouse, a dog left locked in the barn. A motive. No known connection. Nick's thought back, had there been blood on his coat? His hands, no. He was clean. Too clean, maybe. Like he'd washed it all away. And yet, he was polite, quiet, tipped well. She had joked with him, smiled at him. You smiled. At a murderer, and still, she didn't feel afraid of him. She felt sorry. That night, the diner felt colder. Booth 7 sat empty. No one wanted to sit there, not even the regulars. A quiet understanding had settled in. Word had gotten out. The waitress who'd served the killer, the booth where he sat, the meal before death. Nick stood behind the counter, wiping down mugs that were already clean. Her reflection in the metal napkin dispenser looked like a ghost. Ben came out from the kitchen. "You good?" She nodded slowly. He didn't even flinch when he said it, like he already knew what he was going to do. Ben didn't have a response. Nix looked back at booth 7. She could still hear his voice in her head. "This is my last meal." A week had passed. The rain had dried. The news had moved on. But inside Milo's diner, something lingered. It clung to the booths, the floor, even the light that filtered in through the blinds each morning like it was afraid to land. And booth 7 sat untouched. Nix knew it wasn't assigned to any customer. Not by accident, not by policy. Everyone just avoided it. Like the air around it was heavier, colder. Like the ghost of a stranger still sat there, waiting for his final bite. The regulars had stopped asking questions. They sipped their coffee and made quiet glances toward Nix, like they were afraid to bring it up. She didn't blame them. She hadn't really spoken to anyone about it, not even Fern. Not even her mom, who'd left 3 voicemails that week. Asking if she was okay, she wasn't okay. She wasn't even sure what okay meant anymore. Every time the doorbell chimed and a new face walked in, she braced herself, looking, wondering. Was this person running from something too? Was she serving someone on the edge again? And God help her. Would she even know it? They said. His name was Caleb Dunn, age 34. No known criminal record until the night he killed 2 people. A couple in a quiet home, a robbery gone wrong, or so they claimed. But the news moved on fast. There were newer stories, a school fire, a missing woman. America doesn't mourn killers, it buries them. But Nix couldn't forget him. Not because he was a murderer, but because of that look in his eyes. He hadn't come in angry, or drunk, or scared. He came in like a man who had already made peace with something terrible, and it haunted her. Make it good. This is my last meal. Had he meant? Was it guilt? A confession? A goodbye? Or maybe it was punishment. Maybe he wanted anyone to remember him for more than the crime, and now she did. It was early Thursday. The diner was nearly empty. Sunlight poured in for the first time in days. A quiet song from the jukebox played in the background, something old and slow. Nix was setting napkin dispensers when an old man walked in. Alone. Gray beard. Limp in his step. He walked past every booth and sat in booth 7. Nix's throat tightened. She approached slowly, coffee pot in hand. "Morning," she said softly. "Morning," he replied. "Coffee?" He nodded. She poured it quietly, unable to stop her eyes from flicking to the spot on the table where Caleb's $20 bill had once sat. That bill, she still had it. It was folded neatly in her apron pocket. She didn't know why she kept it. Maybe to remind herself it had all been real. The old man took a sip and smiled faintly. "Never been here before. Passing through." She nodded. Nice place to stop. He looked up at her. His eyes were kind. You all right? She blinked. Yeah, just tired. Been a rough week for this place, I hear. Her body stiffened. People talk, he added gently. I don't believe half of what I hear. But I do believe people carry things, heavy things. Nix didn't reply. She couldn't. Her throat felt tight. The man didn't press, just gave her a warm, knowing smile and returned to his coffee. That night, Nix stayed after closing. She walked to booth 7 and slid into the same side Caleb had sat in. She placed the folded $20 bill on the table, right where he'd left it, and then she just sat there. The diner was dark, except for the soft glow from the neon sign outside flickering against the glass. She thought about the pancakes, the way he ate them, the quiet sigh, the eyes. She remembered what Detective Bone had said. He left a note. Said he just wanted one last moment of peace. That moment was her. She had given him that, even if she hadn't meant to. Even if she didn't understand it at the time, he hadn't asked for forgiveness. He hadn't tried to explain himself. He had simply asked for a final meal, and she gave it to him. She would never know. Why he did what he did, the police said there was more letters, maybe another victim in a different county. Caleb Dunn had lived a life no one really knew. But she didn't care about the headlines anymore. She cared about that booth, that moment. It's that haunting sentence. This is my last meal. She still heard it in her head when she woke up too early. Still felt the weight of it when she served someone pancakes. Still watched their eyes. Just in case. The diner felt different now. Not because of what happened, but because Nix had changed. She smiled more. But not out of obligation, she asked people how their night had been and really listened. She leaned in when someone looked lonely, offered an extra refill or left a little note on a napkin just to remind someone they mattered, because now she knew. Some people don't leave clues. Some people just come in, order pancakes, whisper something strange, and vanish. And the only sign they were here is the echo left in your chest. Booth 7 is no longer empty. People sit there again, but to Nix, it will always belong to him. Not because he was a killer, but because he reminded her painfully, terribly that you never truly know someone's last moment. And when she pours coffee now, it's never just coffee. It's a comfort, a chance, maybe even a goodbye.